Civil War, which began on April 12, 1861, was one of the bloodiest wars in U.S. history, bringing death to 640,000 to 700,000 brave men. It was a fight against the Union, the Northern states, and the Confederacy, the Southern states.
The Civil War was a huge massacre.
The cause of the war was mainly slavery, but other factors like trade, the rights of each state, and tariffs also had a great impact. The war came to an end on April 9, 1865, when General Robert E. Lee surrendered. The North defeated the South because of its industrialized and populous society within the South. Technology, journals and tactics, and population played the biggest roles for their victory. When compared to the Confederates, the Unions had exceeding amounts of industry which allowed the Unions to achieve victory more easily. The Unions not only had developed technology and weaponry, but also had an abundant amount of industry, which benefited the Unions with mass production of good quality in weaponry. The Unions used decks of gunboat Mendota, where the Navy fought against the Confederates. Although the Confederates were capable of affording gunboats, the Union surpassed in numbers.
The Unions not only had more developed technology and weaponry, but were exceeding in numbers compared to the Confederates.
Also, the Union had access to the largest cannon during the war. They used the fort at Battery Rogers to mount the largest cannon to fire to the Confederates. Industry wasn't only limited to weaponry. Railroads and telegraph lines were established through the Act of July 1, 1862, from Missouri River all the way to the Pacific Ocean. Additional method for transportation and communication definitely fastened the delivery processes during a hectic time period. The Unions were fairly holding on due to their overwhelming number of soldiers, despite the fact that their generals were very weak. George McClellan, a Union general, was skillful at training his soldiers but was not efficient in commanding tactics. Because he was not successful, Lincoln, the president, removed him from the Army of the Potomac. Because of Lincoln's wise decision, another, more nimble-minded general replaced for McClellan. Ulysses S. Grant was the Union general, while Robert E. Lee was the general for the South. Grant's tactic of direct attacks gradually pulled the victory over the Unions. On the other hand, Robert E. Lee was a highly educated man. His tactics and plans were precise and efficient.
The South might have started with better generals, but they weren't enough to defeat Grant.
However, the number of soldiers for North was astonishing. The tactics that Robert E. Lee used had no purpose. The biggest factor contributing to the Union's victory was its overpowering number in population.
The population wasn't comparable. 22 million for the Unions and 9 for the Confederates.
According to the U.S. Federal Census of 1860, 34 states were involved in the census. Out of the 34 states, only 13 were located in the South. The ratio of free states to slave states was 21 to 13. Slaves only made up to 2/3 of the population because each slave was considered only 3/5 of a normal human being. Black slaves were forced to fight for the Confederates in order to make up for the fallen numbers. The Union was able to seek help from the Irish soldiers who became part of the Army through draft, enforcement of military service, adding to the already exceeding numbers they had. The victory was fairly easy for the Union in case of population.
And the Civil War is still recorded as one of the most violent wars in U.S. history.
Unions faced victory in the Civil War on April 9, 1865, when Robert E. Lee surrendered. Because they had better technology, better tactics, as well as higher population than the South, they won. It was a deadly war, killing millions and millions of people. Those brave soldiers and generals are still remembered.